What if you don't cut any of them?
No, I have to cut. No one's going to know what happens before this sentence. It's going to just be a big mystery. It's going to be fine. I'll explain now that this episode's out a little bit early because we're doing a service to the people. I don't want to get too in like the production weeds of the show, but oftentimes an episode's ready a couple days before it goes out. You know, that gives me time to like have a weekend and edit it. You know, it makes the schedule a little bit more looser for us of when you want to come over here and do it. Like normally it just makes sense, right? Like they don't just come bam fresh off the presses to the podcast feed. But this one is a very short turnaround time because we wanna be included in the conversation. Wow, there's a lot of hair on the table. I wonder what that's from.
You talk about those things. You're talking about like, the production schedule and all these important things, but you were unemployed for like the last like
2 months.
2 months.
2 months. I was gone for a
this
month.
Podcast. You were unemployed. You didn't. Now that you've got a job, it actually is important. You got to come off work. You got to take the extra time. I do appreciate all of this, Joey.
No, I appreciate it too. I mean, if I move, there's a scenario where like I might move a little bit farther away from you, so that might be annoying if you got to come another 10 minutes to do it. Is that a good point to break that news? I might move like closer to Santa Monica. That might put a kink in our relationship.
That's it. The podcast is over.
Fuck. It was the last 10 miles. It was the last 10 miles. You couldn't make it the last 10 miles. We can talk about that later.
You know, I couldn't park inside of your apartment building area. I had to park on the street, Joey, and walk over. That was an extra 5 minutes.
Fuck.
And the entire 5 minutes, I was thinking to myself, oh, God, I shouldn't be doing this podcast. It's too much.
I'm not a celebrity. I'm an easy talent to work with. Everyone else is the one who has all the problems. I'm just happy-go-lucky capitalist. Yeah, okay. I'm seeing
you, Joey.
I'm seeing through your disguise right now. Jesus Christ. We're here early because there's been so much Dota Pro Circuit news, and people might be like, but didn't you talk about it with Charlie? I mean, a little bit, but now like there's been it's like Hiroshima up in here. Is that a joke in bad taste? I'm sorry.
A little bit.
Oh man.
And now we're left in the nuclear radiation-ridden wasteland of the DPC announcement.
Oh man, it's gonna ripple for generations and have long-lasting effects. Please stop me. Please stop.
I was gonna go a step further, but
oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Our Dota children are gonna be riddled with malformities. Oh boy, these are really inappropriate jokes. See, that's what you come to Sidepole Podcast for. But you are here listening to this podcast early because we've got some big news about the DPC season. We want to be able to talk about that with you guys for the like 5% that come to us for actual Dota relevance. I know the rest of you guys are just waiting for the penis and poop jokes to come in, but we will actually be pretty well informed on this stuff, Joey.
It's wild, yeah. I mean, you're generally well informed because you're like an industry insider, but I feel like I know a little bit more than average about this, so I can like slip in my alternate perspective that people definitely are here for.
And it helps that the fact that we actually have just straight up official rules and a whole bunch of information released over the last like 3 days. So
yeah, because so for those who aren't completely caught up, which one, it's your fault for either not following Dota close enough or not listening to a couple prior episodes. So I'm gonna out you right now as not being a true fan. But beside that, like there was a leak. If you even want to call it that, do we want to call it that? There was a leak, I guess. Like some Liquid Dota posted an article by someone who I don't even know that's like, hey, DPC rules are changing, and everyone was like, whoa. And it was kind of like floating in the air that there was going to be a different season post TI10. The teams knew about it. They were pretty hush-hush, and then suddenly people knew. But it wasn't officially from Valve for a while, so it was hard to say, like, what's actually real, what's going to change, what's going to change.
Sure.
But now that there's been an official blog post, that means that we know at least the lion's share of it. I'm sure there's still a lot of details that we'll continue to talk about for the next year, but for the most part, like the new DPC season's here. What's that, 2020 to 2021?
Yes. 2020, 2021. That's a lot of 20s.
It's too many 20s. What's like the top line? What's new and exciting that Valve told us, Cap?
So we are moving to a league system. First of all, that would be the biggest thing. We're also going back to 3 majors. So how it's going to work is we're going to have 6 weeks. Is it 6 weeks? Yeah.
I think it's 6 weeks.
6 weeks of a league format and leading into a major. And that is for every single one of the regions. They will all have this. Participating in the league will get you prize money, which is another change from qualifiers in the past. If you thought about like just qualifying doesn't get you any money, right? You get to go to the event, and that's where you make your money. Now the league operates as a qualifier, and playing in that league will get you paid, as well as get you DPC points. And then on top of that, not only are they doing a league with 8 teams for the upper division, there is also a secondary league in the lower division that is going to represent the real shit teams, the real utter garbage.
So we can stop there for a second. There's going to be 16 teams.
Yes, per region.
Can you name 16 North American teams?
No.
Can you name 8?
I'm not even sure if I can name 8.
I was struggling to
Doze was in this last qualifier. They forfeited.
Does the new C9 count as NA?
Who knows? We'll have to see where they end up playing.
Does this podcast get released before or after EE makes an announcement?
I don't know. That isn't announced yet, right?
Isn't? I don't know. I'm not going to edit it. Maybe it's just a guess. Jack followed them on Twitter again. Does he know? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to go on a little bit tangent. Does Jack, who is the owner of C9 for you who don't know anyone else's phone number aside from Envy's? Surely he has anyone else's contact aside from his. It's like he must be some kind of a masochist. He keeps on going back to that well, and he's like, it worked so well last time. You want to come back, Jackie? I think he must hate himself. He's so happy with his league team right now, which is like undefeated in NA, that he has to just be like, all this money we're making, let's put some in the toilet.
The funny part of that is that Fighting Pandas before had issues finding sponsors, as because they were a team for a while and they made events and stuff, and they never had a sponsor, right? They never had a team.
Yeah, they didn't.
They had issues with that. Do you have any guesses as to why, Joey?
Is it because hot take, I bet we're going to get EE on the podcast. So I know that he can't listen to this, right? Because if he does, he might not want to. But is it because people might not have wanted to work with him?
I honestly, I don't know. But I do know that if I'm a team owner and I'm looking at a team to pick up, I would pick up a team that has AUI 2000 in it.
Yeah,
that's
stability.
A former TI winner.
Yeah,
I would pick up a team like that.
I like Moon and Moon.
That they weren't able to find sponsors. I'm sure they asked around even.
Yeah, maybe teams who've been in the scene before. You have
and somehow Envy leaves that team and ends up on a sponsored team.
Yeah, I don't know.
So maybe AUI was the problem.
You know what? You might be right. I'm just taking a shot. I don't know anything.
I doubt it.
Man, I hope they announce that soon. Anywho, because there is... So we can probably tie these two together, right? Because we know that there are going to be 16 teams, and there's definitely going to be 8 teams that, unlike an Overwatch League or unlike an LCS, League of Legends League, you don't have to have like a franchise buy-in spot. Teams now know that even if they aren't your, Secrets or Vicis or Fanatics or what have you, they can have a team that might not win events, but can either do well in a league or at the very least will be seen in a league.
This is
consistently
easily the most support that Valve probably ever will give to the tier 2 and tier 3 scene. Not only are they making a flat prize pool structure of the league itself that you get paid just for participating in the league, and it's a relatively flat structure. There's not a big difference between 1st and 6th. It's
very similar to LCS.
There is no money for 7th and 8th, where you also get knocked down into the league. But I think that there's supposed to be some incentive for you to just play some matches, even if you can't be first. You know, what about those teams that just end up like, we're the 8th worst team in this fucking league? Like, what's the point of playing anymore? And they just forfeit, right? Like, there's got to be some incentive to keep people playing for stuff, even if you're getting knocked out, right? So you don't get paid for that.
$280,000.
$280,000
per season.
So
even though you're not, that in an old Dota world, you might say like $200,000 go to first place, but now, much like you said, much more flat.
Yes, much more flat. And then on top of it, this entire league structure is to incentivize team owners to be able to come into the Dota system and look at these, you know, like these teams that you normally wouldn't support because you don't even know if you'd ever see them at a LAN. There was no reliability before. You pick up a team, say you pick up, Fighting Pandas. You don't know if they're actually going to qualify for a major or a minor. You don't know if they're going to TI. You don't know any of those things. Now you know 100% that there is a set amount of games that they are going to be playing that will be watched because of a league format. So more team owners are going to come in. Tier 2 and Tier 3 players are going to be more and more supported as a result. And on top of that, because of a flat structure, but not a structure that is, especially if you are a Tier 2 player that's not going to majors and not going to TI, because of the fact that you are going to be sponsored by a team, because of the fact you are actually not making enough money to just like continue living, you will be forced to, I don't know, do things like make content. Make yourself valuable outside of just playing the game of Dota 2. Yeah. Right? Like team owners are going to come in, they're going to be happy with the league, but they're going to want you to do other things, right? And more content is never a bad thing for any esport.
It might be a bad thing for us if more people like, you know, we're so cool, right? That like we're so cool. Like I want less people making podcasts. But aside from that, make all the content you want. The prize distribution, I know that we said it's flat, but like first place, $30,000, 8th place, $22,000. Very flat.
Very flat. I know that some people had some issues with this. I thought you didn't get money for 7th and 8th. Oh, my bad. Well, you don't get DPC points.
You don't get DPC points. You're not going to a major.
5th and top.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, you still get paid just for playing in the league. Jeez.
Yeah. The first 4 teams are going to the majors, and if you're making money, you're making money at the majors, right? Yeah. Like that's where the big prize purses are coming from.
Yeah.
The rest of the season is more akin to a salary than it is like a prize winning. Like sure, you know, play well, make more money, but relative to what it was before, like it's more akin to a salary.
Yeah, we see a lot of players, like a lot of people in general, just they think the flat structure is not good enough. But let me just say, I think that TI has kind of like fostered the wrong attitude in a lot of players about where your money comes from. Because the thing is that we've gotten to a point where the international is such a big draw, monetarily speaking. You place top 8, you're kind of set for the next how many years?
Yeah, depending on how frugal you are, it could be a very long time.
Yeah, you could get 7th, 8th and be good for another 5.
Or what country you live in, or what your standard of living is.
Yeah, exactly. So all these things. So these players are like, they look at how am I making money? How am I getting by playing this game professionally? And they look at it as prize pool. But no other esport has it that way, right?
Not really.
Not really. The amount of money that you're making for like first place at Worlds, the best players can still outdo by getting like really good salaries out of being a part of a team, right? Or getting certain sponsorship deals.
Oh, if you're in League of Legends, as a direct comparison, you're making money from your team contract.
Right.
Like you're getting paid, some players are getting paid, you know, high 6 figures to play for a year, multiple years. So it's not, if you win Worlds, what's the top prize pool for Worlds? It's less than $1 million for the top team.
Yeah.
The prize pool of Worlds, the penultimate giant League of Legends tournament is $2.25 million. Which seems small if you compare it to TI, but net, those players in those top teams are making more money per year and making money consistently. And I think that we're going to see that now in Dota. Not to that same grandiose scale that we see league players. I don't think anyone, you know, is going to be making quite that money. But if you're an 8th place team and all the money is going to the players, which may or may not be the case depending on the organization or like whatever's going on. That's $22,000 divided by 5, $4,400 per player. Over 6 weeks, that's like $750-ish a week per player to be playing in a season.
Not an amazing amount.
It's not amazing. You can probably make more money working a minimum wage job, but imagine if you are someone who wants to try and break into the scene. You're a tier 2 or a tier 3, and the thing stopping you from doing it is a financial commitment. Like, that's a livable amount of money for someone who's mostly just trying to grind a game and become a pro, to maybe help them live their lives and not have to not play Dota because they need to go work whatever job they have.
Yeah, it kind of sets this baseline of like, you will be able to at least try. You will at least be able to try. You may have to stretch some things, but you'll be able to commit yourself to playing in this league for 6 weeks off of the money that you get if you're in the upper division, right? Mm-hmm. And then if you have aspirations past that, which everyone does, everyone wants to live a better life, just depending on how much better for some people, right? At that point in time, you may have to get a sponsorship. You may have to, in order to track those things, what do? Well, you build up your social media numbers, you grow your YouTube, you stream, you do those sorts of things to attract those team owners and recognizing that you have value. Maybe you won't be heading to the major, but you can at least sponsor this team, and maybe we'll be able to grow in time for TI. And then once you're a part of that team, you are again more incentivized to be able to do those things that creates content. And I think that like it's really discouraging, the fact that we just, like, for the longest time in Dota 2, the Valve, like, they swung this pendulum all the way in one direction, which is players only. Only thing we care about is players and getting this money directly into the players' hands, right? And that was good for preventing players from being like taken advantage of by team owners. There was a lot of good things, right? It was like, it gave them a certain amount of independence away from other tournament organizers, other team owners. They were able to give them the most power possible, but it also took away all incentives for them to do anything outside of just focus on the game, particularly over the last like 3 or 4 years, if you're a part of some player-owned organization, right? If you're a part of a player-owned organization, you may not be getting a salary at all, which was the case at one point in time for at least one org, or you may be getting very, very low salary. But at the end of the day, do you really care? Because all that matters is, you're going to TI. You want to just be able to place as high as possible in TI. And so there's no incentive for those team owners, because they're player-owned, to be doing any sort of great content.
And if you're a player who doesn't want to be doing that anyways, maybe you leave a team and go make your own team, because then you're freed from the shackles of that. Maybe you think it's a good investment. Like, I can start. It is cool that organizations have started from Dota more naturally than they've started from other teams. And you don't see that from everyone. That I'm talking about, like, your Secret, who's expanded to different things and, got investment. Your OG, who obviously made so much money, got the Red Bull sponsorship, like, able to expand and trickle into other games. Like, that's cool. Not a lot of other esports are having that organic growth and building up new teams from scratch from player-owned orgs. But the downside of that is everything you were saying, right?
Yeah. And so now I think with this new system, we've still committed, right? TI's not changing. They haven't said anything about changing the TI prize pool. They haven't said anything about, like, all the suggestions that people have talked about, capping the prize pool, bringing the rest of the money, taking $5 million away, putting it into the majors and minors. They haven't talked about any of that sort of thing, right? So if you keep the current system of TI, which I actually like, as opposed to a lot of other players, I like the fact that there is this incredibly awesome amount of money that is in TI that allows you, a player, to be able to achieve whatever you want for the rest of your life. You're able to, by committing yourself to this game and end up being the best, you have then just been rewarded in such an incredible way. But you've managed to just, like, be completely financially independent for the rest of your life. You've the biggest dreams come true, right? With being able to place first at TI. So you still keep that while simultaneously, hey, we're still like this. That's a very top heavy idea, right? Is that you have to be top heavy in order to make that amount of money, right? But at the same time, we're still supporting the tier 2 and tier 3 scene. I think that's like a pretty good compromise between the two.
Have we, I guess the royal we, have we made players divas by the system?
I wouldn't say divas. Not at all. I wouldn't say divas. I would say they just like haven't been incentivized to like do a whole lot outside of just play the game. And like people work off of incentives, right? There's no like you can be a lot of different kind of personalities, but everyone works off of incentives to some extent, right?
Pay me.
Exactly. Pay me. See some sort of reward, right? Sometimes it's not even pay. Sometimes it's just like I'll tell you, I'm not incentivized when I think content is just not going to go anywhere. Right? If I think nobody's going to watch it, I don't really want to make the content because it just feels like a waste of time to me, right? Yep. That's a non-payment incentive, but it's still an incentive.
Happiness is also one if you want to just get really top level with it.
Yeah. And you know what? When I was asked about this podcast by you, Joe, you know what I did? I swallowed that happiness pill, and I swallowed that idea that anybody was going to watch this, and I was just like, this won't make me happy. Nobody's going to watch it, but I'll do it anyway, Joey.
It's okay. There's a little bit of money, right? So I mean, at least you can take that out of it.
I'm joking.
Man, is it warm in here? Is that just me? Am I wearing too many layers?
No, it is warm in here. I'll take them off.
You're right. It is. I look like I'm going to go to a ska concert. Like I'm going to go see No Doubt after this. Oh, that's for the video promotion, people. Real quick note. You were right about 7th, 8th place not getting paid, but that's in the lower division. I did just pull up.
Oh, yeah, that's
so. Out of the 16 teams, only 15 and 16 don't get paid, and they get eliminated from playing in the first place.
Yeah, dude, if you're the 15th or 16th best team in your region, you're not worth paying. I'll just be honest with that. You're obviously not worth being in the division because that's why they get relegated out.
Yeah. I like relegation. I think this is exciting. I'm going to be very hyped for the relegation for uppers and lowers. I'm going to be excited for, I guess, not open qualifiers, actually. I take that back. I'm going to be excited for who's going up and down and seeing if, any of these teams, this system works, right? If we see lower division teams become upper division teams, which happen automatically by the relegation process. But I think that by injecting just a little bit of money in here, we're going to start to see some people in Dota like we haven't before. And while that's good for the competitive scene, I don't know if that trickles all the way down to like gross player base numbers or like more people interested in the game in general. But like,
it's definitely a slow process, right? Like you're not, if it does impact any of those sort of numbers, it's not going to impact them right away.
No, I don't think so either. But I do think that, knowing that it is viable for more people could be interested in it, or just having more Dota content in general, more people might be interested in it.
I think it's interesting since we're on the topic of relegation. So the bottom 2 of the upper division get sent down to lower division and vice versa. Top 2 of lower division get sent up. They do not have relegation matches. They don't have any way to determine who is the best between the 7th, 8th, and 9th, 10th. Mm-hmm. And that's another complaint I heard about. And I am also like very surprised by that. I feel like that should be fairly obvious, and I don't really know the reasoning why. Is it maybe because you've committed to playing in the lower division and managed to get first or second? You are allowing them to be able to invest more time in getting better by playing an entire another league before they actually get knocked down again?
Potentially. I mean, I think it could be exciting to see those games if they did want to happen. I wonder if it's
why don't you have relegation matches? Because people would watch those. That's super exciting.
Yeah, it's all the drama, right?
Yeah.
It's all the drama. Maybe they fear that there wouldn't be any turnover. I think the worst case scenario with this is like, or the way that it would change is that if you see the people from the lower division always placing 7th and 8th in the upper division, then getting kicked back down, and you see those two teams like always swapping, right? That's when it could probably become icky, and you'd be like, wait a second, maybe we're punishing these 7th and 8th teams too much. but yeah, like I'm just in it for the drama, right?
Yeah.
I'm here for the high drama games. I want to see Team 8 play Team 10 and see if Team 10 can be like, look at that. We just secured ourselves another $6,000 for next year. Now we can have potential for so much more. We can go to TI. Like,
yeah. But, the more I think about it, the more I think about the. I think that reasoning is probably the case. Is the fact that if you are committed to playing in the lower division, you get first, second. You are rewarded by playing an entire 6 weeks in this upper division league and giving the opportunity to grow and get better. I think that's the reason that the way it is, because that would also explain the other thing a lot of people have a problem with is not only is it a flat structure in prize pool, but it's also a flat structure in DPC points. But another one is the regions. Right? Mm-hmm. There is some difference between the regions. Europe and China get like one more team into the wild card stage. South America doesn't get a team into the wild card stage at all. There's some stuff like that, right? Yeah, there
still isn't equal region representation, which makes sense in the world that we've been living in. Yeah, it would be wild to have, the same equivalent of South America versus Europe right now, right? That's probably the biggest discrepancy.
But it is still flatter in many ways, right?
Correct. Yeah. So
than any previous iteration.
If you're if you're an EU or a Chinese team, there's 2 extra spots into the major wildcards. Mm-hmm. If you're SEA or NA, you have 1 extra spot. Okay. But the other 2 regions, which would be CIS and South America, 0 extra slots. So it's just the tournament right now is saying like, hey, EU and China, strongest regions, more people can make it through potentially this top 8 group into a tournament. So they're saying, potentially the 4th best Chinese team could be as good as the 2nd best South American team.
For sure.
Which I think makes sense logistically. Who has been complaining the most about all of these changes? Because I've seen some. First off, sidebar, if I can have a non sequitur for a moment.
Yes.
If you had to explain something that may be unpopular or really get it off your chest, and you have to make a Twitter post of it, what kind of a long Twitter post person are you? Are you like a twit longer link, or do you write it in Notepad and then take a screenshot of it and then post the picture? How do you deliver news like that? Because I think I haven't had to do it, but I always wonder how I would go about it.
I'd probably do twit longer. No, Notepad screenshot. Just, I guess you could do Microsoft Word and screenshot it and post it on Twitter too, right? I was thinking Notepad, I didn't want to type that much on my phone. It's entirely about ease of access for me, Joey.
Okay, I'm picking that up. I'm understanding that.
I don't care how people read the message. What matters is how easy it is for me to write that message.
Point being, I think people probably have seen some homies with some twitlongers recently.
Yeah.
I don't like this. We weren't consulted. I have complaints. And I don't want to inherently discredit any of those dissenting opinions, because obviously Valve is not going to make a system that is perfect for everyone, whether it be them or the tournament organizers or the players or the viewers. We're all together collectively embarking on a new journey that is going to have some bumpy waves. Some people have been more vocal about than others. So what does that look like? What is the harshest criticism of the new system?
Well, Heena obviously was the twitlonger that probably got the most eyes on it, simply because he was very adamant about how much he disliked it and used some questionable analogies in descriptive words.
He is the coach of Secret?
He is the coach of Secret, correct. And he posted a lot of things about it. And then he backed down on it a little bit in a second twitlonger post. That's how you know. That's how you know. Fuck, you fucked up. You have to post a second twitlonger.
That's just bad PR, honestly.
Yeah. But yeah, he was the one who posted it. One of the biggest complaints that seems all around is less money, less events, and the fear of less third parties third-party organizers, which again means less money there as well. The pro players are always the first ones to point out, like, hey, like last year we had X amount of total money in the DPC system. Now we've only got this amount. And that would be one of the complaints for this setup. That was the really big complaint about the flat structure and just being able to, what was it, kindergarten and communism were the two words that stood out to me from me. By the way, I actually really like Heena, and I hope people don't give him too much shit for his Twitlonger post.
Heena, great friend of the podcast. Come on over, buddy.
He was emotional. You know, he said some things. It happens.
Does it mostly do the complaints mostly break down to players who are worried about making less money?
I think their bigger complaint is less so about the money, though the money is like, it's still concerning, right? Whenever you feel like there's less money going into the system. Their biggest complaint was the DPC points and how flat it is. So if you don't know, you get 500 for being first in your upper division, and then you only get 500 for being first at the major, correct?
I do not know that.
So basically being first in your region is the same as being first in the world, right? Which sounds inherently just wrong, right? But that's also 500 points on top of the 500 you got before. There's also, that was the same concern with like the flatter prize pool structure and the less money that's going into the majors as well, is the fact that like, okay, there's very clearly like less money going to the best, right?
I think that stems from, in the past when we had major systems, we'd see like someone would win the first major and they would kind of almost auto be invited to TI because of those points, and they might be very different in 8 months from now.
Yes.
So does that team who won 8 months ago deserve to be a TI? I mean, there's probably no right or wrong answer to that. I can argue for both ways.
I mean, here's the thing. I think that that was something that Valve tried to solve before, where they had their private system. They inherently weighted they weighted, as in they put more weight on tournaments that were later in the year, right? Because it proved that you were one of the best going into TI, and that's what's important, not necessarily 9 months before if you won a tournament, right?
Totally different patch, totally different team potentially.
And I think that was the same thing. That's why they had the super major, right? Is that like we had this final major at the end, and it's worth this much amount of points. Be on your best at this tournament, right? So you can go to TI again. Putting weight on the end of the season. But there are some like problems with that, right? It's like you don't like, how do you weight the system that is like basically 9 months long to make sure that your first events are completely meaningless? You still want the best teams to actually participate in those tournaments, right? You don't want them to skip out on them. Funny enough, when they made it flat between minors and majors, that's when teams actually started skipping majors, right? Which is funny enough, right? But that's just something as a team you learn, right? If you think you're going to be going to TI anyway, it's better to conserve your energy and follow the lead of a team like OG. Which, LGD has been on a very long break since they can't seem to get out of the goddamn open.
Those poor boys. They're such a cute group. I really want them to do better. Mostly, I don't want Paris to be like, hey guys, we're gonna find someone else. I want to keep that partnership alive. From a fan perspective, I haven't seen much complaints. I've seen people kind of like echoing some of the sentiment that some of the more vocal people against the system have, but it seems like either a net neutral or a net positive. Normally, when things like this have happened in the past and there's been changes, there's like Reddit posts on top of Reddit posts on top of tweets that are like, this is everything that Gabe Newell did wrong. But I haven't seen that much like vocal opposition to it, so that makes me think that more people are okay with it than normal. No, I would agree with that. I think
a fair amount, as you said, of the people, regular people who are putting criticisms are mostly just like kind of jumping on top of. They try and like play the mindset of the player or argue for the player or argue for the tournament organizer.
PPD said this. He's literally Jesus. He must be right. I'm going to echo that thought.
Yeah, the recent post that went up, the very first comment was that like, oh, it's going to be really hard for tournament organizers to have to supply the other, because tournament organizers have to be able to provide studio coverage for English, Chinese, and Russian, as you would expect, because those are the primary languages of Dota, and you still have to have a language broadcast from Spanish,
South America,
and Filipino, I think. Tagalog? No,
I think is it
something
Tagalog?
else. Something else. But either way, it's like you have to have those. And the first comment from, Random Redditor 246 is that like, it's going to be really hard for tournament organizers to provide, that for the other official languages. But nobody really knows about these things, right?
Yeah, that makes me also realize that our scene is generally older and a little bit more mature and kind of understands there's a business behind it too.
Yeah.
Because I think in other games, the first thought wouldn't be like, well, how's BTS going to pull this off? It would be like, wah!
It's also like a Dota 2 is, for better or for worse, it is a tough game, and that naturally attracts people who think very highly of their own intelligence, and people who think very highly of their own intelligence search out the problems they don't think other people see.
Yeah.
Right? You don't take the normal complaint. You try and like, what's something only I can see? What's the problem only I can see? And then pull that out, put it up on a pedestal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing is about all of this, right? There are still plenty of essays being written. One thing I can promise you guys is that Valve is actually communicating quite a bit with players, tournament organizers, team owners, all those people.
Well, it was reported, Phil had some tweets that I think went a little bit viral, like, hey guys, there was 2 or about to be 3 meetings between team organizers.
Yes, there's going to be another meeting in LA, apparently. So,
yeah. So things did happen. This wasn't just done in the dark. I wonder how much of this is in response to the last, 12 to 18 months we've seen of community vocal wishing support for tier 2 and tier 3 teams. I wonder how much of this would have become if there wasn't that much vocalization on it. I wonder how much the whole thing is in response to that. I wonder how much of it's a whole thing in response to hey, we need to make the scene either have a little injection of longevity or what their top-down reason is. But the fact that they are clearly including inviting team owners into the discussion is a good thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't ever argue against that, right?
They're always talking to, at least now, they're always talking. I've heard reports of 4 or 5 years ago where people just could never get a hold of Valve, but Valve has put, I would say, they've been, for Valve standards anyway, very vocal about the fact that hey, you can come and talk to us about these things. And I think a little bit of history has made people feel like it's still the same old Valve where there's just they'll never respond to us. But and so Valve just keeps on having to say it hey, we'll talk to you guys if you want to be able to set up something. We will talk to you about this stuff. But then the other thing is, so they are communicating with people. And the other thing I want to assure people is that Valve is always trying to improve the system. I think that's one thing that gets really overlooked. We've had very different iterations of the DPC. Hell, we've only had the DPC for 3 or 4 years, but before that, the system was always in a way still trying to improve. But once we had the DPC, every single year except for this last one was a repeat. But I would still argue some things got better, right? But they're always trying to improve on things. And I think that people seem to overlook that it is a constant process. And this is a young field of both esports that people don't have all the answers. And there are problems with every solution that you can come up with.
Yeah, and every solution isn't going to fit everyone. That's why you see, like, maybe a team owner has a problem with one thing, where a player has a problem with another thing, where a viewer has a problem with another thing.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm a viewer, I look at the schedule they propose, and I'm like, I'm going to need, like, a Google Calendar so I can remember when to actually watch Dota.
I'll give you a great example of that, of, like, different sections having ignorance to other sections. And that goes for, like, you know, right now I'm talking about, like, the plain Redditor who, like, doesn't have any inside connections. But I'll say right now, like, me as talent, I view the Gorgsea and Admiral Bulldog and even myself stealing free content, or whatever you want to call it, right? Basically being able to be on Dota TV and take numbers away from tournament organizers. Mm-hmm. I will say I view that as a problem. But the tournament organizers that have been asked about these things have mostly said it's not a problem.
Yeah, so
I look at it, I'm just like, what the hell? Like, how is this not, like, Dota TV
sure? Okay.
Like, is this not, like, a big deal? Like, I would think that Dota TV exclusivity is, like, a very important deal. But apparently tournament organizers don't feel the same way.
Yeah, I like those things. I never know. Like, I never hear those conversations. So
Yeah.
you just kind of get in that idea of, well, that's what Reddit thinks. That's what's right? But not always the case.
Yeah. So
I don't think we've had a bad, like, all the iterations have been good, right? Like, we've consistently had better DPCs and, like, addressed problems. I don't think we've ever had, a moment of, like, wow, why did we change this?
yeah, I just think of the very first minors majors, right? There was too many of them. The system was all jumbled up. It didn't really seem like you could tell the difference between a minor and major. They all had different formats. Like, it was just a mess, right? And then we got a more uniformed season for the last 2 years, where we have a very set amount of minors and majors. A minor leads into a major, which is a cool system that you kind of take from CSGO, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's kind of how they operated.
Dude, give CSGO a TI. Hot take. I know it's a really hot take, everybody.
But yeah, it's like you've got all of these little improvements that are being made, and now we're moving into a league system, and very likely that league system will be different next year from the year after.
Yeah, and probably still better.
And to be honest, like Valve is full of a bunch of smart people, and there's a lot of smart people giving their advice on this sort of stuff. But to be honest, you can't really know these things until it actually plays out, and then you'll start seeing the flaws in the system. So,
I've been getting more into LCS because of work. Turns out I'm in an office now at Liquid where everybody is a league person almost
Disgusting.
universally. I know. I walk in there.
Did you shower before you came home from the office today? Right?
No.
Did you shower?
I didn't.
I fucking smell league filth.
That's what it was. I played a game today. That game is so fucking complex in a completely different way that Dota's complex.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. Everything, 10% bonus to a passive and an active. Anywho, I'm getting off track. I've been having to learn more about League and more about the LCS. And even with all of its flaws, it does... I get why the system they have in place is exciting. Every team plays, 2 best of ones, a different team every week. It's a round robin tournament where they do a full round robin twice in a group that leads into a playoffs. It makes a lot of sense. You know what days League is going to be on. You can easily follow when your team's going to be there. They have so much supplementary content that it's great for the story. Like I realize now, because I never really gave it the time of day before, that it works.
Yeah.
And it feels like it works much better than the Overwatch League works from what I've watched of that. Follow
Yes.
that. So, kind of working in that mindset where I now am watching and appreciating their system more. I like that we're kind of going in that direction where I can get invested in a North American group play.
I hope we don't go too far in that direction, though. One of the things I do like about this system is that there is 6 weeks on for the league and then 6 weeks off, basically. Now, the 6 weeks off usually cover things like Chinese New Year, Christmas. Like the 6 weeks is definitely dialed down a bit, but there is opportunities for third-party organizers to run events, and I hope they still do, because there is a lot of people are saying this is going to crowd out the calendar. There's going to be nothing outside of that. There is an indirect incentive. Maybe we talked about this last time, but there's an indirect incentive with the league filling up a lot of these things. The fact that people are regional and they stay within their region playing games, it does mean that when you run a third-party tournament, you will have people more excited to watch inter-region play,
yeah.
right? So you were going to be very excited to see Secret versus EG if you manage to get that, because Secret's the top of Europe right now and EG is the top of NA right now. Who's actually better, right? And you don't get to know until the major, but wait, you do get a sneak peek at this third-party tournament, right? And you're gonna tune in to watch that.
I've had this argument with a couple of my other friends. I think that naturally there are going to be fewer of those events.
Sure.
You know, I would still expect to see, you know, I bet there's a big one in Singapore. I bet that there's like a We Play
We Play will get it. I'm sure of it. Hell yeah, We Play. I just came back from the We Play event. Let me say, I'm feeling good right now. I've got new pants thanks to We Play. I've got new shoes, new shirts. Go We Play all day, every day.
I look forward. Next episode, we have to have a full We Play debrief because I'm very excited to ask a million questions about that. They're set. Jesus Christ. Anywho, We Play will do one. They'll probably go in Singapore. There might be like a Chinese one. There'll probably be a summit at some point in time. I wouldn't guess more than like 4 or 5 big ones or 4 or 5 important ones. I really, really like that there's going to be 4 cornerstone Dota events again. I think that I was the most excited about Dota from a completely anecdotal standpoint when I can get excited around all of the majors, and there was less of them. I don't know why the shift between the 3 majors TI versus the current system made me less interested in the major. I don't have like a good scientific, psychological explanation for it. Mm-hmm. But I know it's like something about those 4 cornerstone events felt really good to me.
Yeah, I think that there was something like I liked the minor major system that happened after the 3 and 2 Valve majors, because what a lot of feedback probably was at the time, they went from 3 Valve majors to 2 and then to no Valve majors, was that third-party organizers were getting crowded out, right? You basically, at that point in time, had one TI, which already crowds out the field by quite a bit, and then 3 mini TIs, right? And then 2 mini TIs the next year. How do you possibly compete with that as a third-party organizer?
You do something different like Summit, maybe. You do something like where you put money in a fire like We Play. Like there's not a lot of options.
Yeah. And like that was a bit of a problem. And part of the problem is that Valve majors were so much money. Right? In a world where I had somebody who was a part of a team tell me that they were actively trying to push a tournament to increase their prize pool, and that's why they wouldn't go to another tournament that had a lower prize pool. Tournament organizers have significant expenses when it comes to just being able to put in enough money to attract teams in the first place. Well, with this new system, right, the majors are significantly less money than the old Valve majors.
Yes.
Right? And that is something that I'm sure players dislike, right? They like being able to play for 3 mini TIs and then a TI itself. That's pretty hype. I would love the hell out of it if I was a player.
I can't fault them for that because at the end of the day, that could be less money. Have they talked about, sorry, I might be derailing. Have they talked about if they're going to do Compendium-S stuff for the majors? Because that could also make
I haven't seen anything about it.
That could, in theory, make those prize pools silly also.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it from their post. They just put like it's going to be 500,000, right? And tournament organizers have to put in half the pool, just like they have to do for league systems. Same thing. The half the money that goes into league is actually coming from tournament organizers as well.
Hear me out.
Okay.
Valve, someone in the office is listening. I know that for a fact.
You know that for a fact
For a
now.
fact now.
Oh, God.
Fantasy cards.
I was hoping they would never listen to this, honestly.
Fantasy cards. For the majors.
Yeah.
Even if you don't do a full compendium thing, give me one chest, maybe 2 chests. One Immortal Treasure and an option to buy fantasy card packs.
Okay.
Put that towards the prize pool. Don't build anything else. Don't do anything special. Just those 2 things. Watch the money increase. Let me play fantasy. That's my plea. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I will also support that because I don't play fantasy. I'm too busy during TI. I can't be bothered to mess with that. But for majors, it's a possibility that you can create content around it as a tournament organizer, and I think that would be hype, and I think that's something TI should be doing as well.
Here's my TED Talk for the tournament organizers.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you your best fantasy Dota content. I know you might think it might be like fucking Nahaz or it might be Knoxville. No, fuck them. Call me. That's it.
You're not even going to give them a taste? You're just going to say, call me.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
That's all you need.
Fair enough.
I am.
Can I just have a short little? There was some guy on Twitter that was that like I was a part of some chain for like a tournament announcing people or something like that. Oh, it was ESL 1 LA. I know what it was. The ESL 1 LA announcement for the talent came out. No women. Obviously, a lot of people commented on that. I won't get into that right now, but there was a lot of people talking about it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And some guy, I don't know where your head has to be, but some guy was like going off about this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he was talking about like how much better tournaments can be and all these sorts of things. And at some point in time, he goes, but I won't say anything more about that because they should have to pay me for this stuff. What the fuck? Who the fuck do you think you are? Random Twitter guy 27? Like, what the fuck?
I hate that I evoked that memory because that means that
you think James Lampkin at ESL is going to be looking at that Twitter comment section, scrolling through, and he's going to be like, this guy's got some great ideas. I should steal some of that. Ah, darn it, he saw me coming. Well, I guess I'll slip into those DMs.
Got to pay a consulting fee.
Come on, man.
Yo, Kennegan, if you want to talk to me, I got a consulting fee.
Jesus Christ.
I'm so...
Some wild ones on the internet.
Yeah, man. I am excited for ESL LA. I'm excited for the major season. Are you... I don't think we've touched on this yet. How do you feel as someone who... kind of bases your yearly income around Valve events and works these things? Because surely you have a different perspective because you're going to need to feed yourself.
Yeah. I mean, my perspective is going to be the most positive out of anybody. And that's for obvious reasons.
That your disposition
just like other
positive.
people, I work towards incentives, right? So if players have, especially the top pool of players, are complaining because some of their incentives are being taken away, I, on the other hand, have given you a very peachy, happy, dreamy version of this new league because I am in the best possible place of almost anybody. I'll be honest. I live in LA. I live near the BTS studios. I live near the ESL studios. I'm hoping to be working with them for the league. That means I won't have to travel. I hate traveling.
Yeah.
Fucking hate being in the goddamn airplane. I hate it so much. So I won't have to do that anymore. And I can still get paid. I can still get paid doing the work that I love to do. I might be making more money next year because of the league system. I don't know.
If I had to place a bet, I would assume you'll be making more money next year.
So I would also assume that. Some of my other talent were pretty doom and gloom when there was just rumors initially. And for me, like, I just had a lot of faith in Valve, even if I didn't know some things. In fact, I was actually pretty optimistic about this when I didn't know anything. I only knew about I literally found out about the Liquid.
Yeah.
Right? Off the Liquid article. That's all I knew. I was optimistic reading that because at the end of the day, all complaints aside, again, I think Valve has always been trying to improve something. So when they announce a league system, and we were talking about on this podcast, we're talking about, are they going to be doing online casting with just, two casters? Like, are they just going to be hiring, Bob Caster and Joe Caster too? pay them $10 a game and send them on their way? Or are they going to actually bring people into the studio? If they bring people into the studio, are they going to have great talent for it? All that sort of thing, right? Well, I had faith in Valve, the fact that they weren't going to take a step back. We've always been improving, right? And they weren't going to go back to the TI4 era of like everyone's just casting online. There's constantly games going on, and you just got just casters casting from home nonstop for no pay. Like I had faith we weren't going to go back to that, right? Turns out exceeded my expectations, where we're actually not only doing studio broadcasts, but they are enforcing you must have a panel as well as casters. So that means a lot of work for everybody.
Yeah, more people are getting more work consistently too.
And anybody who's saying like, oh, but tournament organizers, surely they're not going to. Well, remember, you have to bid for these leagues, first of all. You have to take the responsibility in saying, I'm going to do this thing, and I'm obviously going to be looking to make a profit from doing so because it's a job. I'm going to take this, I'm going to hire people, I'm going to do all those things, and I'm still going to make enough money for myself, right? So obviously tournament organizers have to be able to have some sort of plan going into this, unless you're just burning some of that investment money. Yeah, either way, it works for me. I don't care. But but the league is incentivized to, right? Because you have a league, you can sell the sponsors.
Yeah, and not only from like a talent perspective, these leagues are gonna have to create more esports jobs. I'm thinking too. Like, I don't think any of these studios have enough staff on hand right now to probably run the leagues that they need to.
Oh yeah, there's going to be more admin jobs.
There's going to be more admin jobs. There's going to be more behind the camera production jobs of literally controlling the broadcast. There's going to be people who might not have previously gotten opportunities to be casting or being on the panel to do that. You can probably see
YouTube content.
Talent.
That's another one, right?
There's going to be YouTube content, which not only has to be made, it has to be edited and uploaded.
Yep.
There's just the logistical people who have to manage all of the new talent too. There's going to be more graphics people who need consistent work.
Yep.
There's going to be writers probably to some degree if they're going to be making extra content. There's going to be people who needs to like write and produce that, and if there's going to be someone writing and producing it, that means there needs to be more video editors who are going to be making this content too. Like most of these leagues, if they're going to be doing it properly, just need more people.
Yeah. And
those are stories you'll never probably hear about because we don't know everyone who's suddenly going to be hired by what have you, a BTS or I always forget the CIS studio's name.
Maincast, RU Hub.
RU Hub. But there's going to be just a lot more esports jobs that come out. This was just ultimately cool too.
Yeah. I think that this definitely has far-reaching implications, and people won't initially take into an idea of like how game-changing this is for the ecosystem, for, again, how many jobs are available, how much more work there's going to be. I mean, just talent, right? Because you see us all the time. So it's easy to kind of think of some things, right? Just talent-wise. Okay, you have to have casters and a panel. Let's say bare minimum. You have 2 of each. 2 casters, 2 panels. That is super bare minimum.
Yeah, I didn't even say 5 is bare minimum, like 3 panel, 2 casters.
Let's say 5 then. Let's say 5, and then they're able to like move around, like the panels go to casters, the casters go to panels. So that would make more sense. 5, pretty sustainable, small minimum number. 5 people for 6 different regions, right? That's 30 talent getting hired for 6 weeks. 30 talent for 6 weeks.
18 weeks a year. And that's not even counting the majors or third-party events or TI.
Yeah, people are complaining a lot about the fact that, and I see these complaints because it's concerning for me, overexposure of talent. Why do we see the same talent over and over again? Well, you're only seeing 7 or 8 talent, right? To give you an example of how many people are hired per event, ESL has I think 7 people with an 8th person being purged as a weatherman.
Yeah, I saw ESL's list, and I'm like, I don't think that's enough people.
I would agree with you, but that's a conversation for another day. Right, but 30 people compared to the 8 before, right? Like at best, let's say over the course of 6 weeks, you have like 3 events, right? Maybe like some of those people are going to be repeats, some of them won't. But like, let's say at most 15 people. I think that's fairly reasonable. Of like, you're going to have some casters that are going to go from event to event, but there's going to be some different analysts and stuff like that. Well, you've just doubled the number of talent getting hired. All these tier 2 and tier 3 casters who are talking about like, oh, this could be terrible. Tier 1 talent might lock us all out. How?
There's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah. There's too many jobs.
All these tier 2 casters or tier 3 casters are like, fuck, I should learn another language.
Yeah.
That's the value play. Like anyone who's now bilingual and can do like the Spanish cast and the English cast, you're the one who's going to get the job right now. So like everybody pick up your Rosetta Stone. That's
and then on top of that, there is still the second division, which will largely go uncasted. But I have heard that there have been proposals that say they will cover the lower division too. I don't know how. That's not part of the deal. You don't have to do that as a tournament organizer. The second division is very clearly just like, it's out on Dota TV, whatever. Whoever can cast it can cast it. But like, at least one tournament organizer was like, let's do it up. Let's do the whole thing. We got it all covered. In which case, that means they're going to be hiring even more than just 5 people. They're going to have to hire at least 10.
Man, if they do that, they should relegate the casters.
That would be sick. Because it would become very much like the Smash Summit. You know how like they vote in and stuff,
Yeah.
like people vote in, and so you get these campaigns to keep yourself relegated, right?
Yeah.
I would not enjoy that because my brand is not very good compared to other tier 1 casters, but you would have a bunch of talent creating content and doing shit just to keep themselves getting votes.
Hey everybody. Man, it's wild. There's so much from so many different perspectives that this new league brings that is genuinely exciting. Like, I almost wish that I can just go into some kind of a time chamber and see what it's gonna be like come, the end of the year.
Yeah.
Like, this is still gonna continue to evolve. There's still gonna be tweaks and changes. It's not all set in stone. We don't know who's doing the events, but like, I just want to know what's gonna happen now. I'm so interested in it. And we haven't even talked about the fact that something else that's like related to this next season and still blows my mind is that Valve put out an ask for different like fucking cities in the world to host TI.
They just put out an open deal like, hey, if you want to put in a proposal to host TI, what?
Right? That's like what the Olympics does. Is there going to be some kind of committee in Valve that's like, you know what? It's definitely going to be whatever. I'm calling it now from the 3-point line. TI-11 is going to be in Singapore.
I could totally see that. I think Southeast Asia would be fantastic to have a TI in. I've always loved to go to Southeast Asia. The fans are incredible there. It's one of the old homes of Dota, first of all, right? Like everyone talks about China as being like the home of Dota, right? Going back into the early days. But Southeast Asia was also a really big hub for Dota back then, right? So I would love for us to be able to take it home in that regard. And on top of that, you probably have a lot of cities that are willing to work with production and stuff to be able to make a really good TI.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Singapore is a city in general that is also like pushing government resources into growing esports.
Yeah,
which is why they have my best odds, I think, in terms of like being able to push from a government standpoint to host an event.
I think they're ahead in that regard compared to South America. And possibly compared to one of the problems with like CIS is there's not a ton of great places to host TI. Like Kiev, for example, I don't think you can really.
It would like what be Moscow?
It would probably have to be in Moscow, and I'm not sure how many venues are good for that there.
Yeah, I'm a little bit ignorant to that, whole region. So it's hard to even say.
Either way, I would love CIS or Southeast Asia. Those would be my two go-to places. I mean, I think it's in a way only fair that China got their TI. Give the Russian casters, the CIS casters, give them an opportunity to have a TI in their home language on their home ground. I think that's fair.
That means eventually, if we get one in every region, we'd have to go to Brazil at some point, right?
I think would it still be English? I think it would still be English.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because that's
what ESL does for their events, right? When they go to
yeah.
South America.
Yeah, it's a good point. But I mean, Valve requested, proposals now. So, we might not know instantly who's going to be hosting these things, where's TI going to be at, where the major's going to be at. But like they're asking for this stuff now. So I wonder if we're going to know sooner rather than later.
I'm not trying to clown on him, but there was a Reddit post about like, hey, how do I get in contact with Valve? Because I have my city council's interested. And for the life of me, I just kept laughing at the idea that it was like fucking bumfuck Indiana,
Twin Creek, Michigan, TI.
We've got the Elks building that sometimes opens up for birthday parties. Like, for whatever reason, that just was so funny to me.
That's like, can we put TI in Glendale? Not even Los Angeles proper, just like Glendale.
Or like one of my places, like Vancouver. Oh, Vancouver, Canada? Yeah, that was a great place to have TI. No, Vancouver, Washington, right across the river from Portland.
Oh man, people got a month to put in proposals. If we want to write one up, we can find some small city.
Yeah.
I'll take it to, man, TI would never be in Los Angeles, but that would be the best case scenario for me because I want to take a flight.
I won't disagree with that. Seattle. So the days of Seattle and Vancouver, because my mother lives like near Portland, so it was very easy for me. And I actually lived with my mom for a lot of the time when it was in Seattle. So it was very nice for me just to be able to drive TI.
Did you drive like just back and forth when you were working, or I mean, they surely still give you a hotel room?
Yeah, there was one time where I came back from combat training, and I was back for like a day, and then I drove straight to Seattle for TI 3, I think. Yeah, so I showed up to TI 3 in really good shape and very tan.
Everyone's like, wow, who's this Adonis?
No, nobody knew who I was back then.
I was at TI3. TI3 at Benaroya Hall was weird because it was still small enough to where it almost was like we kind of had an odd control over the venue.
Yes.
We were like kind of all over the place.
We were just free to roam, basically.
You were completely free to roam. And I walked across the street to there's like a city Target over there. Mm-hmm. And I bought a box of Hostess.
I remember that city Target, actually. Yeah, go on.
I bought a box of Hostess donuts. Because there wasn't a ton of food for whatever reason. I'm like, fuck, I'm just going to grab something quick and then have a snack.
Yeah.
I bring them back, and I just hid the second half of the box of donuts in one of the merch stands that was not being used by Valve, just Benaroya Hall second floor cabinet that some docent would normally work at. I'm just I'll just open the drawer, put the extra donuts in there, and the next day I had the rest of the donuts. It's so wild to think that that's what TI was 7 years ago, where it was so small that I could literally hide a box of donuts in the venue for the next day, and now they're taking international city bids.
It was so small that when there was that iconic Liquid is doing it, right, with the Bulba clockwork that went off, I still remember him getting out of the booth, and he raced up the hall into the you're in the main part, and then you go into the outer hall area, which was also where the panel was, and a bunch of people followed him because he just raced up there, and he was just kind of jumping and dancing around. He was so excited. I still remember that moment. It was a great moment, and everybody was around him. And nowadays, you can't get close to somebody
you can't get close to almost anyone.
Yeah. It's you could approach them at some point after the game for an autograph or something like that, but you wouldn't ever be able to just pat him on the back, tell him great job, all that sort of thing.
I watched one of the semifinals games in between Dendy's mom and Hotbid. I'm like that stuff just doesn't. It's what a weird, different world it was.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna go to Stockholm this year, and then God knows where the year after. Selfishly, I wish that we just kept it in Seattle forever. Much cheaper flights, much shorter travel distance.
For sure.
But I guess it is cool.
And Seattle's beautiful that time of the year. For 9 months, it rains and it's cloudy. And it's just gives a lot of people depression. For that 3 months, especially around that TI time, it's beautiful.
Yeah, you can watch it on the lawn. I don't know where you're going to go watch on the lawn later.
Yeah, dude, I missed the lawn. That was a great time.
Man, I am so excited for the new season. Like I said, it's almost a shame that I'm going to have to wait to see how it actually puts up. I am so interested in the bad things too. I cannot wait to see how a region fields 16 teams and how they stay together for 6 weeks. That's going to be fucking wild.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see some team let's say a team beats Beast Coast, right? Let's look at South America specifically. Let's say some team beats Beast Coast. They get their 500 DPC points, and then on top of that, they're seeded into the major playoffs. So I think they guarantee top 12.
Yeah.
So something like that. Like they win like one match in the lower bracket. Say they get knocked out. They win one match in the lower bracket. They do like the same thing next year. 1,000+ DPC points. You're basically in a TI at that point.
That's exciting.
You've already got a non-Beast Coast South American team qualify. And there's going to be some real mad people, some real mad players, especially. Because
can you believe that Nigma didn't get to the TI, but fucking Pain Gaming did?
There's gonna be some real mad people, and hey, those complaints they are very valid. Whether or not you should have a flat structure for the DPC points, whether or not you can weight regions based off their previous performance, all that sort of thing. Those are legit complaints. But I think at the end of the day, I want people to be optimistic and excited for the new league system because I think you should be. I think it's going to be a very big change, and I think a lot of good things are going to come from it. There's going to be some problems for sure, but more people should look on the bright side of these sort of things, man. You can't do it perfect every single time,
I really hope that there's either a phenomenal third party or Valve does an exceptional job of using their client in the app to tell me when the games are. I'm going to need a motherfucking calendar because the tables look confusing.
Highly anticipate that'll be the case.
If it's not Wikipedia, which surely will work anyways, Valve, I need this one.
Again, it's one of those sort of things. It's like, if you're going to do a league, why wouldn't you do it right? Right? It's like the same thing with the studio broadcast, right? I had faith in Valve to if you're going to make a league system, surely you're going to support it, right? And not because I think it would have been a significant step back if they just left it to online casters and stuff. I have faith in Valve that if you're going to make a league, you're going to support it through the DPC app. You're going to support it through your in-game stuff. If you're going to make that sort of commitment to really be hands-on in a way, then hopefully it'll be backed up by Valve.
I'm going to get big into NA Dota next year.
You're going to be a big NA Dota fan?
We're going to bring NA Dota back.
All right.
Maybe not. Maybe I'll go over to C. I'll just follow wherever Liquid is. I think I'm contractually obligated to do that.
I was about to say.
Do you know I can only drink Monster now? It's wild. No water. This cup, it's all Monster. It's wild. It's fucking crazy.
You just look at a Red Bull in a grocery store. Away, demon.
No, I mean, it's half a joke, but editing the episode of League of Legends show, dude, I had to edit some Red Bulls out. It's real. It's real,
dude. Let me just say, the Red Bull versus Monster thing, I generally prefer Red Bull.
Oh, that's the wrong answer.
Which is a problem because Red Bull does not sponsor eSports as much as they should. Monster is the big dick there. The problem becomes when you go to tournaments and they only have Monster. And they only have the basic kind of monsters because there are some great monsters out there, and I quite enjoy them. Monster's done a really good job improving on various flavors. There are some that I really like.
Can you tell me which ones you like? Because I want to judge you right now because there's wrong answers. Do not say the purple one.
The one that tastes like Fanta. It has the yellow with a little orange and white stuff all over it. It's a weird looking can, but it basically tastes like Fanta. I'm down for that. There were some tea ones that were okay, I think.
I just recently learned because we got the
red can. There's a red one.
We just got a big shipment of Monster at the office. I recently learned that most people don't like the default Monster flavor.
Oh, yeah.
That's my preferred one. All the other flavors taste like bad candy. At least the original Monster has like a distinct flavor like Red Bull does. It's like, it's what they're
vitamins?
going for. No, it's good. I tried 8 different types of Monster over the last week. I like 2 of them. I like the default one. I can stomach the one that's all white, like the really white
Have you tried the various flavors of Red Bull?
When they came out with the color collection, like I tried the initial ones, but then they lost me because they came out with like 30 at once. And I'm like, I'm not going to try all of them.
Let me just say, like Monster, props on you guys. You guys probably have like 10 times more flavors than Red Bull. But when Red Bull does a flavor, they don't miss. I haven't drank a single one that I'd be like, oh, that's terrible. Monster. There's some. Have you tried the Monster protein drinks?
Absolutely. Why would you do that to yourself? What about the Monster like rehab drinks that are like Gatorade or something, or the ones that look like water? The Monster coffee?
Okay, no, that's
why Monster coffee?
Yeah, I know Grant's like a big Java fan or something like that. Okay, so I don't like coffee, and in general, I'm just looking for a kick. I don't drink caffeine drinks outside of when I'm at tournaments. So all I'm looking for is, because my job is being high energy, is something to give me some energy. So I don't want a giant can of just pure sugar. I want something that has a small amount of caffeine that won't make me jittery and isn't loaded up with sugar, so I have a gigantic crash because I have to work a 14-hour day or something, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And so those Gatorade deals, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I also do like default Red Bull flavor too. I'm fine with default Red Bull.
Default's great.
I'm fine with default Monster. I don't want the other flavors at all. This is a Monster podcast. How dare you?
Sponsor us, Monster.
Fun fact, anytime you see someone who has a Monster branded water bottle, it's not Monster.
Not Monster in there.
You probably know that, but now you really know that. Yeah. If you see a Monster branded water bottle, that person significantly prefers
I've seen a player crack open a Red Bull and pour it into their Monster thing.
But you know what? That's a great player. That's an A+ player. They're probably on EG. It's probably Arteezy. Let's be real. That's a great player because they respect the brand commitment.
Yeah,
and it's important.
You got to do it.
It's important. Can you imagine if Monster was like, man, Arteezy was smoking a Red Bull on his
smoking a Red Bull?
Fuck it, I'm done. I'm done. Fuck, I think we're done, Cap. I think we're done.
It's been a long work day for you.
Not a little bit. I'm still trying to settle into the new system. I'm very excited.
That was a long game day for you.
Don't out me. Don't out me that today.
I threw out the bait for you to say yes.
that today was game day.
All you had to do was play games today, chat.
That's not true. I did almost more work than the other people did. I don't want to, compare 1-to-1, but man, it was.
Yeah,
rough.
You're new. You got something to prove. Those other guys, they're 2-3 years in.
I really do. I got to make sure people know that I'm cool. I even tried to play League of Legends with people. Man, it's so gross. I got to take Charlie up on his offer. He offered to play with me so I can learn because he has to learn too. I guess I can't ask you. I'll find someone else.
I mean, I've played League of Legends in the past. I would not be opposed to playing in a group. I have no problem with it. League is a very fun game.
There's so many. It's just. There's so many heroes. And I know you can say that about learning Dota.
Just specialize in one. You know me? I played roaming Alistar. There were some real mad people about me playing a roaming Alistar, but it worked. All right. I was like, what the hell? Nobody roams in this game? Everyone jungles? I was like, I bet they won't see this coming. All of a sudden, I roam on the mid lane. I come out of the bushes. I charge that motherfucker into the tower. I slam on the ground, stunning him. All of a sudden, my mid lane is won. I'm just like, sick. Or Fwiz. That was my other one. I played Fwiz, and I played the Lantern guy at some point in time.
Yeah, I don't know. Every item is kind of confusing. because they all like do 4 or 5 different things. They're like small percentages, and everything has a passive equipped to it. And there's like the thing is like you could just equip a heal to your character that you choose before you start playing, regardless of character. Yeah. And there's flashes or something. Yeah. And there's the wards
burning
make
flashes.
No sense.
Big deal.
I don't.
Big dick deal.
Dude, I need to figure out League, and if someone wants to help me, I'm probably talking to the wrong audience, but I gotta do it for work. Woe is me. Let me complain a little bit more. Go double lift. Really on brand.
Got him.
Thanks for listening. Let us know if you've stayed past the point where we talked about League of Legends or energy drinks or the halfway mark, or if you fell asleep. If you did fall asleep, thank you, because we still get the view. Also, if you want to give us a listen on Spotify or Google or Apple or whatever the fuck podcast player you like, do you know that it counts as a listen if they only listen to like the first 5 seconds?
Fuck it, listen to 5 seconds five times.
That's wild. If you're gonna do that, like, you can just inflate the numbers. That's fine. So I can.
We're like that band that put out an album just entirely filled with like silence, and had their fans play it over and over again.
Yeah, that's great.
Do that for us.
Big win. Just do that for us, please.
Also, rate the podcast. Give it 5 stars on Apple. Music.
I said I was gonna read one on the next show.
Can you do that as a thank you?
Keep talking. I need you to keep
for
talking.
us giving you an early podcast, an early episode of the show. I hope you're enjoying this on your weekend and you're like, damn, I normally have to wait until Tuesday for this. As a thank you to us, sign up and give us a review of 5 stars. Why don't other streaming services have that for podcasts, by the way? I noticed that. Spotify doesn't have
Apple's so fuck up. Like, I don't like it.
Wait, it's bad that Apple has reviews?
No, I mean, it's fine, but like, it's so important to the ecosystem. I just generally am not an Apple person. I don't like the way the iTunes store works. Like it's just like, oh, we gotta go. A lot of people use it. I don't know. Spotify. I got look at that. We got a new review from Terry Flores last week. Great new take. A little dry out there in the Dota 2 podcast scene. I really like the new take on what you guys are doing. Period. Full stop. Thank you, Terry. You should hit me up. I'll send you an in-game item or an out-of-game poster or something. Let me know, because if you review us and then we read it, I'll send you something. Okay, that's to incentivize you, to incentivize us, or watch it on YouTube because it's there also, or listen to Shared Tangos, Trenton Ziori. I'm sorry, I said your name wrong.
Incentives.
Thank you. Incentives. That's the through line. Pay us. Someone needs to. I can't do this for free. It's my living room. I'm burning daylight. This costs electricity, people. These microphones, they're like $100. It's expensive, okay?